Heroes first, veterans together, legacy forever. I want to thank you for joining me on this journey of getting to know our heroes on a much deeper level. I am your host, Josh White, and this is the Hero Front Podcast. Let's get after it.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, people just, I don't know, people just open up and tell me things. And it's always been that way my whole life. And so having a podcast, it kind of makes it at least more like fun to talk about things. Like, oh, and by the way, this is being recorded.
Right. Yeah. You dabble in a lot of things. Like, I looked at your website, you've got books out, you've got like seminars out. And like, it kind of made me realize that I know you, but I don't really know you. Like, I don't know all of your story. You know what I mean? Like, every time we've talked, we've always just talked about me.
Really? No.
But now you're on Hero Front. So we're talking about you this time. I'm going to get to know you. What do you like better? This one or this one? What do you think?
The other one. The other one.
This one's better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then, because it just looks like Josh.
It's just me. It's all me. It's like I'm just floating in space over here.
Exactly. Yeah. You need little pinholes behind you, so it looks like stars.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Galaxy.
Yeah.
You're floating in the galaxy somewhere.
I need to do that. But yeah, Shay, what I was saying was that I know you've been through some stuff. I know that you have learned quite the lessons over your life. Otherwise, you wouldn't have all these amazing tips and great advice and all your clever acronyms that have a story behind each letter. None of that would be possible unless you went through something to have that hindsight, right? And so that's what I want to hear about. I want to hear about the origin of Sha Sparks and how you became this badass woman that's helping just people all over the world now. Like, how did that come to fruition? I'm trying to figure out. Help me out. I need help.
You need help. So I doubt that. I've met you in person. You're fine. So I was in an abusive relationship for 12 years. And when I got out, I was able to get away. We'll put it that way. And I knew that statistically, women go back to men who are either the same man or they go back to another one who's, still abusive. And so I asked myself, okay, what is it that I don't know that I need to know in order to move forward? And I started counseling in the first week. I started coaching, hired a coach. I read books. I journaled. I just did so many things to heal. And so many things to like really dive into myself and invest in myself. And within about, I don't know. It was hard. Don't get me wrong. It was hard. It was brutal. I cried a lot because there was just so much that I didn't know about myself. There was so much that I didn't know about my family growing up. We only know what we know, right? So you just assume growing up that your family is normal. Like, that's just it, right? And so it's not until you get exposed or really find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh, wait, not everybody has green bean casserole on Thanksgiving. What? So, I'm making light of it, but it was kind of that type of thing. Like, for me, it was, you mean dad lives in the house and doesn't work all week and doesn't drink all the time and, stuff like that. So I was like, wow, I've never had that. You mean your dad comes to your volleyball games? Wow, that's new. Your dad has a conversation with you? Wow, I never had that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I think anyone in the military knows what you're talking about and can relate with that, because we have this whole world and it gets shattered as soon as we meet people from all over the country. And even when I met my wife and we were dating, like, my family plans, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but they plan around like the drinks that are there. Like, they're not planning like the food that's there, right? They're like, hey, what's on the drink menu? And we'll go from there for the holidays.
Right.
I go to her house and they don't have any. And I'm thinking, like, what is wrong with these people? Like, is it because of me? Like they chose not to drink because I'm here. I couldn't comprehend that was their norm.
Right.
I couldn't even wrap my head around it. I thought they were pretending because I was a guest there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. So one of my best friends, growing up, I would go hang out at her house, and every time that we would leave, she would go around and hug her brothers, her sisters, and her parents and say, I love you. And even time her brothers left, anytime her sisters left, they did this to all the family. And I was like, what is that? That's so weird. And then I saw it a couple more times and it was like, I want that. I want that. That's so cool. And I didn't ever get that. My dad was emotionally unavailable. And, I had to learn what that actually meant. My mom was emotionally unavailable. And basically we talked about things that didn't matter. So we talked about how's the weather, how's the car running? What are your grades? It wasn't, how are you feeling? How are you coping? How are you getting through all the things that you had, everything I'd experienced? Never talked about that. And it wasn't until about 5 years before my dad passed away that, because I had started to heal and really change, I changed the way I talked to him. And so because I changed the way I talked to him, he started to change and he started to open up more to me. And so I say I transformed trauma into treasure because I went through a traumatic experience and I was able to turn it into a treasure because my dad became my best friend in the last 5 years of his life.
Oh, wow. He became your best friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were able to like really, okay. So just so I'm tracking the timeline, you were raised in a household where, expressing yourself deeply was not the norm.
Right.
Right. Like expressing it through physical touch, through emotional words, it seems like that wasn't your norm. And then
so he expressed anger. He was really good expressing anger. My mom was really good expressing anger. And she was also really good at not speaking at all. And then he was really good at drinking.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's tough. And he went through the Korean War. And so
I think it was the Vietnam War, but he was in Korea.
Oh, it was the Vietnam War, but he was in Korea. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. And so he's probably had a lot of demons and a lot of pain. And, he just it wasn't part of his upbringing, to find a way to deal with that. Right. So instead, he just carried it probably his whole life and it would just come out in anger every so often. And so, the point that you were in this abusive relationship, was that before the 5 years spent with your father when you fixed things?
Yeah. So when I got out of that relationship, I was able to really peel away the onion that I am, that we all are, and heal each layer. And because I did that, then I learned things like being vulnerable. I had never been vulnerable in my life, like to even say the word. I was like, like stumbling over it because it was so scary and foreign to me. It was such a huge risk.
It sounds like a weakness if you're not familiar with it.
Yes. Like vulnerable means weak, right? Like, why would I want to be vulnerable? I'm strong. I'm tough. I don't cry, all those things. And what I found is that being vulnerable, practicing being vulnerable actually builds you confidence. And I didn't realize that until I started doing it. And within, I don't know, just a couple of years, my dad and I would be talking and I would say, so Dad, what I'm hearing you say is this, but what I'm questioning is, are you actually asking me that? Or are you trying to manipulate me? And he would be like, the same way I stumbled over vulnerable, he would go, manipulate. Like, what is that? What is manipulate? I can't even say it. And I would say, well, Dad, it sounds like you want me to do this other thing, but you're trying to trick me into saying yes, when really just asking me what it is that you need. So my family, both my brothers and my older brothers and my parents were very sarcastic. So sarcasm is anger in a clown suit.
Anger in a clown suit.
Right?
I've never heard of it that way, but I love that. And I think it should go on a t-shirt, but go ahead.
And it's true, right? So it's funny. It can be funny, but the issue is that there's something underlying that they're not really asking or they're not really saying. And so that happened my whole life. And so when he would ask me to do things, I'm like, so are you really asking me to do this? And okay if I don't, because I'm busy, or are you asking me to do this because you're trying to manipulate me to do it, whether I want to or not?
So you would
And
just kind of call him out on exactly how you saw it, which is not what he's used to. He's not used to that response, right? So that kind of threw him off guard.
well, not only threw him off guard, he didn't even realize he was doing it.
Oh, wow.
Like he was like, I didn't mean it that way. And I was like, so tell me how you did mean it. And he was like, well, I don't know. So then I got good at like kind of asking him questions on, okay, did you mean it this way or did you mean it that way? And he really had no idea. Now, I don't know if he was able to speak that way with his new wife or his stepchildren or my siblings, but with me, at least he was able to really he was able to be vulnerable.
Wow. So all like your pain and suffering that you went through, it's almost like how about you run me through that? Like, how did that trauma, that pain where you were basically felt like you probably lost everything, right? Like, how do I pick up the pieces to my life after dealing with this nutty person for how many years was it?
12.
12 years.
Yeah.
So you probably hit a rock bottom of sorts emotionally where you needed to figure out who you were and pick up the pieces. And so I'm just curious how on earth you were able to do that and how that empowered you the way that it did.
Great question. So during that 12 years, at one point, I was had found myself, had given up and was just waiting to die.
Oh,
Like
Jesus.
I'm just waiting for him to kill me. And this is all there is. This is it. So every day I'm going to wake up, get yelled at, go to work, come home, get yelled at, go to bed. Wake up, go to work, get pushed around, get, whatever. He wouldn't say he actually punched me, but he pushed me and strangled me and held a gun to my head. So he tried to do things that weren't like, you leave marks.
Those are all signs that, eventually you're going to lose your life though. Like if you look at the studies of, murders that happened from domestic abuse, they often resemble that first.
Right. And I honestly never in my wildest dreams thought to myself, I should go to a battered women's shelter, because I literally fought him back. I would push him back. I would, do all these things just to show him that he can't just push me around. Who does he think he's messing with? I had two older brothers. They used to fight each other and then I would jump in and they'd fight me. So I know how to handle myself. Duh.
So it was just toxic.
The whole thing was just toxic. And so when I got out of that and really started Christian counseling helped me immensely, the counselor I went to. And at one point we were talking about how he was bullying me. My ex was bullying me. And I was like, wow, now that we say it in that context, I bullied him back. But I didn't even realize that I was doing it. And so I journaled for a long time. And so I would journal about that. And in my journaling, I was like, okay, so hurt people hurt people. He was hurt. He was abused as a child growing up. I was hurt. I was abused as a child growing up. Wow, got it. So then we grow up to hurting people. And instead of helping each other heal, we were just helping each other hurt more. So then about 6 months after I'd started this healing process of my own life, I had probably 5 to 6 women just show up in my life who started telling me about their abusive relationship. And it might have been just a toxic, it might have been just manipulation. It might have been one woman he never supported anything that she did. Literally like nothing, like they just went to dinner, went home, did their thing, and then went on their separate ways. And she's like, and we're getting married. I was like, has he asked? She's like, no, but I know that's where we're heading. And I was like, well, that's where you want to head. but that's not what he's saying. That's not what he's conveying. Anyway, long story short, it was just certain things like that I had learned that I was sharing. Like, as women, we, and men too, I'm not going to just point at women, but men do it too. We fall in love with the potential of the person rather than the reality of the person, because we see the good in them, because we're taught that, right? We're taught to see the good in people a lot of times. So we're like, oh, but 30% of the time, this abuser was amazing. He was my best friend. We had fun together. We went to concerts. But then the 70% was horrible. So it's like that 30% is what a lot of us focus on.
Right. And you kind of like, well, the 30% is the real them. And the 70%, that's just, when they're upset, and, I probably upset them. So, you're just finding ways to justify that 70% abusive portion of your relationship.
Exactly. And so within this time frame, like all these women, I just started saying things that I wish someone had said to me. One of the things that I would say to them, because again, I wish someone had said that to me, was, do you believe that you should be able to have a partner give as much love to you as you give to them? And they were like, yeah. And I said, so is that happening now? No. Okay. So you have a choice to make. That never in a million years crossed my mind, because my dad was gone all the time. I never saw my parents give each other love. Never saw it. But because I had went through my own stuff and learned about that, I was like, got it. So love is a give, take, giving and receiving. Got it. Okay. So, and I won't even use the word take. It's a give and receive, because it's not about taking. Taking is unpermissioned, right?
Right.
So as this started happening, and I'm also a hairstylist, and so I would have clients sit in my chair, and they were like, so what's been going on? I'm like, oh my God, let me tell you about what I learned. I learned I'm emotionally unavailable. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I am not good at sharing my feelings and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, wow, neither am I. And so they would go and, come back in 4 to 6 weeks, and they'd be like, so I really took the advice that you gave me, or, you really inspired me of what you said. And now it's shifted my relationship with my spouse or my boss or my coworker or my parent or my child. And thank you for that. And so when I started hearing this, and these women who are also in relationships, they would come back to me and they go, well, because of you, I've left. Now what? How do I heal?
Oh,
right.
Geez.
But I got to thinking like, well, okay, remember that concept of bullying and hurt people. I wonder if the concept's still true if empowered people empower people.
Wow. So you're on this like journey of enlightenment, which started with yourself, and you realized how many people need help, and your situation was pretty extreme. So you were able to really help them right away with just your own experiences. And then as time went on, you just learned more and more and more. I mean, I love that. I love that it was like your own journey that you then used to help other people while you were still going through it.
Yes. And it made it go, well, there was the reason I had to go through it so I could help you. Got it. Okay. Because I'm everything has to have a reason type person. So that made total sense to me, and was like, okay, well, if I was able to save you, because I wasn't dead. I could have been, but I wasn't. He probably at some point, 10 years, another 20 years, whatever, it probably would have killed me, but I was still alive. So I thought, well, now I have to be able to give back, so to speak, reach a hand back.
Definitely. And Shay, I'm shocked that you didn't start a podcast in your hair studio. Because that's a genius concept, and you need to do something with that.
Well, it is funny. I have thought about that, and I've actually thought about putting a camera in there and having it like coaching from behind the chair type of thing.
Just capturing those conversations. Yeah. That is a genius thing. That would be so cool. It could be like a video podcast, and yeah, you should try that out. And then
Well, and my next life is the salon is not in it. I'm retiring from that, so we'll see. We'll see how that plays into it
you're
next time.
retiring from that.
Yeah.
No way. Okay, so what's next for you then? We're just going off the cuff now. I just want to know, like, you're
Yeah.
retiring from that. So what's next for you?
Yeah. So I have done hair for 28 years, and it's so weird because I'm only like 32. So
You're a very
it's
gifted hairstylist.
I guess what can
Yeah.
I say?
Yeah.
And so in the last, well, I'll say from the last 2.5 years. So well, last year, last Memorial Day, I lost my brother. And 2 years before that, I'd lost my dad. And 2 years before that, I'd lost my mom.
Holy
And
cow. I didn't know you lost all three of them. Jeez, I'm sorry about that. It's terrible.
thank you, within a 5-year span. And there was multiple other people in between them from 6 years, going back to 6 years. And my one remaining brother lives in Florida, and he's been asking me to move there for 28 years rather than moving here to Kansas City. I grew up on a farm in Iowa, and my dad, when he got divorced, moved to Kansas City. And so I moved to be closer to him. And it just took me, 20 something years to get there, but that's okay. It was worth it. And so after my brother passed away, he was like, okay, when are you moving to Florida? And I said, well, I live in DC part-time. I live in Kansas City. I don't know how I could add a third to Florida. I don't know how I could add another place. And he was like, well, what if you cut out Kansas City? And I was like, what? Cut out Kansas City? Like, that had never crossed my mind. And I said, well, I'm looking at, I've been working on opening a salon here. And he said, and how much closer are you? And I was like, I'm not. And he said, so why don't you let that go? And I was like, let that go? What? How can I
Just
let that
blowing
go?
your mind.
It was because it was something I'd never thought of, even though I coach people and their goals and attachment. Did not realize how much I was attached to my own goal. And when I let go of that attachment and said, okay, I'm letting it go, I had to grieve that. I had to grieve the letting go of that goal that I had been attached to for so many years, as along with my brother. And so I feel like we're horses when we get hyper focused on a goal. We're like those horses with the blinders on in a parade, we only see what's ahead of us. And when you let go of that attachment, you let go of that, they'll take off those blinders, and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff that's out here. And look at all this stuff that's over here. And there were so many more opportunities. So I really started kicking around the idea last year. At Christmas, we talked about it again. And ever since 2021, the beginning, doors have just opened to where I'm connecting with more and more people in Florida. And then I went on my tour, my podcast and book tour, where I met you in person.
I'm one of those people that in Florida. Just saying.
Yes, exactly. And now you're in Florida, and you'd probably be about I don't know, 6 hours away, but still, you're still in Florida.
And to make it more of a sign, my last base was in Missouri.
Exactly. You were less than an hour from me here, which is so crazy. And your wife's from here too, which is crazy. So yeah, we're kindred spirits and didn't even know it yet.
Exactly.
But I think that's what's so fascinating is just how my life has constantly worked, is just noticing the next opportunity and having the courage to walk through that door when it opens, and then being open, not having an attachment, not having an expectation, just walking through it and going, who's in here that I'm supposed to meet? Who am I connect with? What am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to learn about myself? Where am I going next? And just being open about it. And it has taken me, I met a veteran at a podcast conference in 2019. And here we are today. But I'm so connected with the veteran and military community. It's just absolutely crazy how it's just grown.
Yeah, I believe in signs too, like following the breadcrumbs of life, and the different paths that it can take you on. But And I heard you talk about that before on your other podcast, how you believe in the signs and that there's lessons and things, and we're meant to meet certain people. And it just reminded me, like, as I was listening to you tell a story like that, where I was stationed at Whiteman, I was in maintenance, and this was at my lowest point of my entire life, drinking every day. I had the heart virus thing, that we talked about. And I'm not sure if I told this story on our episode before, but so they just created like a new running path. They're going to build a new school. And I still liked running, even though I was super unhealthy. I still tried to run every so often. And I went for this run on this new path. It was this beautiful path, and it went behind these houses. So there's like a street and a road there, and fences, and you can see the houses, and these houses had decks on them and people barbecuing, and they owned the house and they had their friends over. And I'm this broke airman that's just super unhealthy. And I'm seeing this, and they look like military people. And I'm thinking, like, how do they have this house? Like, how does one own a house? Like,
right.
It was just so, I just realized how small I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was just realizing how tiny my world really was, that I didn't even consider that could ever be my reality. End up meeting my wife. She helps my journey of turning my life around. We go to Arizona, and then we go back to Missouri, and I bought that house.
I love that.
Yeah. And this is by coincidence too. Like,
I love that. Well, there are no coincidences. So yeah, I love that.
What I mean is, I didn't intentionally say I must have a house on this street. It wasn't like that. It was like, it popped up. It was perfect. It was everything we wanted. I didn't even tell my wife that story. And we ended up buying that house. And I ended up, like, every time I was on the deck cooking or with friends and family, I thought, like, I'm here now. Like, I made that a reality.
Right.
I went from thinking it's impossible to living it.
Yeah.
And so, like, and then I bought the house from like a person who I'm connected with also. Like, this guy's mom was like the woman who got me into college.
I love it.
Yeah, like there's even another layer of connection there. And so, I guess my question to you in all that is, when things are going good, I feel like the signs are clear, like when you feel that love, and it just feels like anything's possible, and beautiful things start to unravel. But what I struggle with is when stuff gets really, really hard. Just brutally hard sometimes, and painful. And it feels like there's no way around these obstacles sometimes. And I struggle to I struggle to even believe in the signs in those moments, because it feels like a punishment sometimes, So my question to you is, you have been through hard times. You've lost loved ones and friends. And so the difference. And do you lose faith in those hard and dark times? Or do you find a way to understand that it's a lesson in itself and it'll pass?
Great question. So you mentioned rock bottom, and I have to say I hit rock bottom many, 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 many times. I also was an alcoholic and teenage alcoholic, and got a DUI when I was 16, but I didn't quit drinking. I just slowed down a little bit. And then, I quit drinking later on in my 20s because I met the man of my dreams, who was also an alcoholic. And so somebody had to be sober, right? But there were, many, many, many times of rock bottom with him. So have I lost faith? The thing is that I grew up, so I'll talk about faith, and if that's okay.
Definitely.
So I grew up in a church, going to church, and I was probably like 8-10 years old, somewhere in that age range, when I learned very quickly that my parents were churchgoers, not Christ followers. So we went to church every Sunday and then came home, and I call it kick the cat mentality. They would come home and like go back to normal. Like, oh, you're going to beat each other up, and we're not going to really treat each other with love, and no, none of that. We're not doing any of that. So it was just different. And so I think I would always felt different in who I am and what my faith was. And also around that same age, I was in Sunday school one day, and I'm sitting there, and my church had folding chairs in the Sunday school area, and I'm sitting back there, and they're going over the Easter story. And for some reason, I heard that the religious people killed Jesus. And then I felt like there was a presence sitting next to me in these folding chairs say to me, religious people killed Jesus. Don't consider yourself religious. Be like Jesus and love everyone. And from that moment on, as a little kid, I would say, I'm spiritual. I'm not religious. I don't believe in organized religion. As a little kid. And I'm sure the adults are like, what are you talking about? But that's kind of always stuck with me. And I realized that when I was in this relationship, I mean, I still had that faith, but I was focused on him. Like I was there to help him. I wasn't there to help me. And so I was constantly praying, God, please help him. Please help him. Please help him. And then finally one day it just clicked, like, wait, help me. God, help me understand. Help me figure out what you want me to do. And it was around that I had given up time of, I'm just going to die here, that something also shifted in me. And I started to think about aspirational hope. What is it that your mind, you said you couldn't even comprehend, like couldn't even think that you could maybe get a house like that. So I started to think, okay, what could be possible if I was not with this person? What could be possible for me? What is the biggest dream I can dream right now? And I read this article, and it was literally like maybe a paragraph. And it was talking about writing down your New Year's resolutions. Instead of writing them as resolutions, writing down as goals, writing them down in the present tense as if you already own it. So instead of saying, I will blank, you say, I am blank.
That's awesome.
I will lose 50 pounds. You say, I am whatever your weight is, 50 pounds lighter, right? Or I am fit. I am trim. I am X strong. And I was like, well, let me just make up some stuff. And so I started to make a list of I am statements is what I called it. And I learned later it's called affirmations. And so I'm like, of course they have a word for it. And I thought I was being creative with I am statements. And so
I like I am statements.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm calling them that from now on.
Yes. And so I literally would journal. Like, did you ever watch Bart Simpson where he would get in trouble and he would write on the board, I will not shoot spitwads at teacher?
At the beginning of every episode, yes.
And I may or may not have had to do that growing up. I was a little troublemaker, just a little. So
right there with you.
Yeah. So, right. That's why we're kindred spirits. Right. And so I took the same sort of thing, like, well, if that was the idea behind that is to get your brain to not do that again. I wonder if writing I am, and then the thing that you want to be, will get your brain to start thinking like it already is. So that's what I did. I spent years probably, instead of journaling about whatever was going on, literally just writing my I am statements. And then
like you were subconsciously like goal setting in a way, because you're right. Like we don't think about those things. Like we limit ourselves. So when you were put yourself in a position to take the limits off,
right,
you started actually considering them as a real reality one day.
Yeah. So I started to write it out, and it was like, sure, why not? I mean, this may never happen, and that's okay. But it was something, there was a tiny piece of hope, a tiny spark of hope, we'll put it that way, that just kind of held on, like, oh, this could be me one day, by just doing that. And I really feel like that is literally what gets me out of those really dark times. And now I don't even remember when I started doing that, maybe 2006. So what is that, 15 years ago?
Wow.
Yeah. I used to, so when I moved, then after I was when the breakup from the ex-boyfriend, I wrote him on postcards note cards and I hung them in my office. And I've now taken them down off my office because I can literally go and cross off almost all of the professional ones.
Oh, wow. Like what are some of the big ones that you hit?
So one was a successful CEO, one was an internet business owner, one was a published author, um, a real estate investor. We just did that last year. My brother and I in Florida, we bought our first real estate property.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah,
So does that
but
mean you're coming here
I am. I'm moving there in February.
in February?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's when you said we'd see each other again, February. So that's your drive down here.
Yep. Yeah. 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 And then I'm trying to think what was some of the other ones. I am an investor and I started investing a couple of years ago and really trying to, build up my own wealth. Guess if that's what you call it. It's not much, but hey, it's something. And it's mine. And I can then take time off and go, on a podcast tour for the fun of it and go from there. So yeah, so it's funny that when you mentioned about the house, it made me think about what happened to me. I was in cosmetology school and was reading a magazine, flipping through a magazine, and there was an article about a quarter of the page. So it's very small, and it had a picture of a salon front inside a mall, and then it had a picture of the owner and his wife, and they were out of Chicago. And I remember distinctly seeing that and going, "Oh, that would be fun to work there," and then turn the page. Years later, I am working in a mall here in Overland Park, and I worked there or in a Kansas City area in the Overland Park suburb of one of the nicest malls in the area. I had worked there for 8 years. I opened it with that owner, mind you, that owner.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. With that owner, worked with him side by side. And because we had 3 salons here in the area that was from Chicago, they were from Chicago, but we had 3 salons here. I was the educator for all 3, including that one. And it wasn't until we got ready to close the doors that I was walking in the front door one day and was like, oh my God, this is the salon that I saw when I was in cosmetology school. What? And now I'm not just working here. Like I'm literally worked here for the 8 years and now I'm walking away. My mind was blown. I was like, wow. And I think what people don't realize is how often our mindset leads us to the next thing, or our minds give us hints, clues of what's coming next. And our goal or our mission is to not stop that from coming to us.
Right. And I love that that you like help people expand their minds too. Like from what I've heard you speak about to, the stories that you tell, you really help people. You're trying to shortcut them really. We don't want them waiting 5, 10, 15 years for an aha moment. We're trying to help them get that aha moment like now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can meet one person that could do that for you. We've all met that one person that's taken us to that next level. And it really reminds me of my time in Honor Guard when we would have these really cool opportunities to put on events for like the base or like at a sporting event. We're always brainstorming like, oh, do you think we can get in the Kansas City Chiefs field? Do you think we could, and what I loved about those talks, and I think I started approaching life this way.
Yeah.
Is that we would start down here.
Yeah.
But we would end way up here.
Yeah.
So the conversation would start with, wouldn't it be cool, if we could go to like this person's retirement and do like an honor guard thing there? Yeah, that would be cool. Oh, well, it'd be cool if we can go to like a hockey game too. I heard there's hockey games. And by the end of the conversation, we're calling the Kansas City Chiefs rep.
Love it.
You know what I mean? So
yes,
let's start here and end up here. And that's how I approach life.
I love that. Yeah, I just was at a women's business summit last week, and one of the speakers met Oprah.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I'm like, so then I go talk to her, and I literally walked away like, so I'm one person removed from Oprah now.
One person removed.
That's it. One person removed. Okay.
That's close.
That's very close.
That's like, a win.
Okay. We got that. Yeah. But that's how I realized that you got to kind of have to think, is like how it's not about the how do I do something? It's about who do I know? Right. So they've always talked about it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Mm-hmm.
That is so true. So true. And just, again, I would never have in a million years thought, oh, I need to go work with veterans, and been on a plane to do that, or a goal to put that out there. And as soon as it showed up to me, I was like, well, that's funny. They keep showing up in my life. I guess I better act on that. And
Definitely.
It has been just amazing. And then here I meet what is he? The dean of the academy there at Montgomery. So,
oh, wow.
Right. I'm like, okay, sure.
There's just sign after sign. And what I love about like veterans, or what I can appreciate about them now that I've been one for a while, is we have a lot of, like, anyone can relate with us in one way or another, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because of the environment, because of the challenges, so many people could actually resonate with a veteran's story because it encompasses so many different things, if that makes sense. So like you have resiliency is a big deal, communication, leadership, depression, drinking, moving your family around, marriages, how to keep that together, how to stay in touch with your family that you've left behind essentially to take this job. Like, it encompasses so much that I think someone like you saw that. You know what I mean? You saw that, and you saw that there was a demographic there that needed your help. You know what I mean? And so like that journey really resonated with you. And so I love people like you that take such a unique background, a unique approach. Because it is different when it's someone that isn't currently in, right? Like, we only catch the attention of people that are currently in 99% of the time. So to catch someone's attention like you, who comes in and makes such a huge effort to help and to connect with us and give these lessons that really resonate with us and truly get us in our perspective, I just think it's invaluable. You know, I love that. I love that about you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely. Okay, I think my mic just cut off for a second. Do you hear me right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'm back on.
Okay.
Yeah, I took my hand off the laptop. See, I'm gonna get electrocuted at some point.
No.
If I just freeze on the screen, I'm probably being electrocuted, and you need to call 911.
Okay. I don't know where you live, but okay.
Okay, one thing about me that you know is that I struggled with alcohol. And you did too, at a surprisingly young age. I was hoping to hear, like,
I'm an overachiever. What can I say?
Yeah, you killed the game. But no, I want to know, like, how someone that young, you know, how did you get into that lifestyle? How long did that lifestyle stick with you? And how were you able to put it behind you?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So my dad used to drink beer, and I, as a little girl, thought it would be great to sit in my dad's lap. And then I would take sips out of his beer. So I think my taste buds really developed a strong liking to beer. And so, you know, I think I remember my mom saying, okay, that's enough. She's getting a little tipsy. That's enough. Now, again, in a normal home, that would be like, you're not drinking the beer, period. Not just, oh yeah, just give her a little. Like, there is no beer. Like, no. But I didn't know that. And so my oldest brother graduated high school, and, you know, a bunch of 18-year-olds, they had a keg party at the house. And we lived in the country on a farm, so it was perfect. And while everyone else was outside getting drunk and off keg beer, there was 2 bottles of Boone's Farm wine in the refrigerator. And again, not one. Nope. My 11-year-old little brain was like, no, not just one. I'm gonna drink both. 2.
Oh my, did you drink both?
Yeah, because it's like Kool-Aid.
Right, it is.
It is. I mean, it just went down. And so, yeah. And so that was the first time I can say I got drunk at 11. And then about a few months later, so that was what, May, graduation time is May. And then Thanksgiving comes, and my best friend and I were cheerleaders. And we had a little jogging trampoline, a little exercise trampoline in my living room, and we were practicing cheerleading jumps. And when I came down, I did the jump. And when I came down and I went to go land, my knee locked up. And so I literally went like this, and I broke the top of my knee off, broke the top of my, I think it's my tibia off, literally.
Jeez.
And I couldn't even put the pressure of my big toe like on the ground. It was so excruciatingly painful.
Oh, that's brutal.
And long story short, I went to the emergency room. They sent me to an orthopedic doctor. I was in a brace from my hip to my ankle. There was a hinge in the middle, but I couldn't walk on it. I was on crutches. I couldn't really do a whole lot. The crutches gave me extremely bad welts and bruises underneath my arms. I couldn't go to school. So my mom, so they gave me pain meds, and she's like, okay, so you'll just camp out here on the couch and, just take your pain meds and we'll get through this. And they were saying like 6 weeks, like I was going to have to be like that for 6 weeks. And so the pain meds didn't work, and they just made me super sick. I would either itch, my whole body would itch like crazy, or I would just vomit because they made me sick to my stomach. And so, and it didn't stop the pain. So my mom was like, well, just stop taking them. And so that pain was so intense and awful that I got so depressed. I was suicidal.
Oh my gosh, because the pain was just nonstop, and you couldn't see past. Yeah, every waking moment was the nightmare, basically.
Yeah, and it didn't like calm down. It didn't go. I put ice on it. It didn't help. Nothing helped. And so I vomited a lot because from the pain. It was just making me sick. So I didn't go to school. It was winter. It's in the middle of Iowa, in the middle of nowhere. And so it was very depressing. I was junior high, middle school, you're around your friends, and all of a sudden you're not. So my middle brother was still in school. And so he went around to all my teachers and got my assignments for me. So I did do my homework. In fact, I think I was ahead a month when I went back to school because I had done my homework. But other than that, I couldn't function. I was just there. And again, I was just waiting to die. Was waiting to die from the pain. And I'll never forget, my parents were actually arguing in the kitchen, and I was in the living room a couple down the hallway, right? And I heard my mom say to my dad, she's in a lot of pain. What if you went in there? I mean, you should go in there and comfort her and tell her you're sorry she has so much pain, because I wish I could take that pain away from her. She never said that to me. She said it to him. And then
you overheard that?
But I overheard that. Yeah. And she never came to say that to me, and neither did he.
They couldn't find a way to get that message to you. You know what I mean?
So there was no nurturing. Like, I'm sure you have kids. So if one of them gets hurt, you're like, oh, let me take care of you. Let me hold you while you cry. I had none of that. And so I think that's really where I feel like, and again, I'm a spiritual person. So I'm like, really think that's when the devil really started to churn in me. Like, well, then be depressed. Why be on this earth? Why keep living? And it was a constant thought in the back of my mind. Suicide was.
Yeah, there is that weird spiritual element to it. Like when you look back, you can see that like something was off. You know what I mean? I've been there before that heart virus thing happened. When I was drinking heavily, I was prescribed Ambien, and I was just having like the craziest night terrors, but they felt like spiritual. Like it didn't,
Yeah.
it was unlike any other types of dreams I've ever had in my life. And it was at my
Mm.
lowest point. So like something's at play when you're that spiritually low and vulnerable.
I completely agree. And then it was probably 14 that I started drinking on the weekends with my friends. And I mean, one night we went to a friend's brother's party, and I'm 14 and already drank tons of beer, and I decided I'm going to do vodka and tequila shots.
Let's
Again,
go.
normal 14-year-olds don't do that. But
No, you're obviously trying to escape.
absolutely. And again, I didn't get that until way later. It didn't slow down. In fact, it got worse. So then my best friend at 15, she moves away, and I spend the second semester of my sophomore year drinking daily. Every single day I would get out of school. And I think part of me, and I was in sports, I was getting good grades, and yet I still I was pushing myself to do this, to drink. I remember thinking like, oh, I can drink every day. I can do this. I would drink a 6-pack of beer every night, a case, 24 cans on Friday, and then turn
No.
around and drink another case on Saturday.
How, like, did you ever ask yourself why?
No, and neither did anyone else.
Like your family members?
Family. They never did either.
They're totally cool with it.
Yeah. Which again, not a normal household. Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So let me ask you why? Why were you doing that?
Oh, it was to numb. It was to numb the pain, numb the depression, numb the low self-belief. I won't even say self-worth. I'll say self-belief that I was not worth loving.
Shay, I'm shocked that you're at where you're at, because I've dabbled in that type of childhood myself. I won't go into all the details here, but like I know the feeling. I can relate with what you're saying. I've been there, not as extreme as you have, but I've been there enough to know the feeling, to know what you're talking about, and it puts a chip on your shoulder. You know, it's something that stays in your emotional backpack forever, in a way. And for most people, it breaks them. For most people, it's like a demon that's just chasing them their whole life. You see it all the time with people that they can't stop drinking, or they can't stop abusing drugs, because that trauma is just completely engulfed their being.
Yeah.
And so I got to say, I'm very, very impressed and proud of you, truly, because of everything you're telling me. It breaks my heart to hear it. It does. It breaks my heart to hear it, because I know the feeling, and that was your whole childhood. That was your whole life.
Yeah.
And to get where you're at now, to get through that, to basically stand up for yourself, takes a whole lot of willpower. A whole lot of will. Like, so it strikes me as you're a type of person who values gratitude by helping others. And I feel like that healed you in a way. I don't know. This is just how it's coming off to me.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I started to really look at, people complain, right? You can complain about anything. But then it's like, okay, but what can you be happy for? What can you be thankful for, is what I call it. What can you be thankful for? And I started to be like, here I am. And this was after my abusive relationship. I'm literally like, here I am in this 2-bedroom apartment. Never in a million years did I ever think I'd afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Oh my God. So I'm literally thanking for the curtains, the 2 bedrooms, like everything. And yet I also can look back and be thankful for every single experience. So even the not being loved as a kid, I'm thankful for that, because now I know how to love, and can do so on such a grand scale. And the same goes for coaching. I mean, here I am now a certified fearless living coach, and we learned that in the program that the antidote to complaining is gratitude. I didn't know that. I was just doing it instinctively, going, okay, I have to change my mindset here. I got to get myself right, so to speak, because I am in a horrible place. And so I started to looking for the good things.
Was there ever like a rock bottom with the drinking for you, or did you just gradually, move past it?
No, so I was 15 drinking daily. And then when I was 16, I got a DUI.
So that was your rude awakening.
That was one of them. And then I had, and I'll never forget the morning after I woke up, and, I'm in the house that I'm in with my parents that are my parents. And so I wake up the next morning, and I remember just feeling this completely, like washed over my body feeling of humiliation. And I thought, and I remember thinking to myself, okay, God, I get it. This is what being humble looks like. So I have messed my life up this far. It's yours. Take it, do with it what you want. Cause clearly I can't, I don't know what I'm doing. And, I came downstairs and was talking to my mom, and I'm like, so how mad is he? And she's like, he's mad. And I said, how mad are you? She was, I'm mad. And my dad comes home, and he gives me a case of cough drops. And he says, so all the guys having coffee at the coffee shop had said that if you put a cough drop, when a cop pulls you over, it'll throw off the breathalyzer, so they can't detect that you're drunk. Yeah.
That was his way of,
yeah.
So there was, wow.
Yeah.
It's like something your buddy would do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And so I had
to have blown your mind.
It was so normal. It didn't even occur to me that was not normal until I went all this counseling, and I was like, that wasn't normal. Oh my God. And, but I didn't probably share any of that up until counseling. Right. So, I went to court, and the judge threw the book at me because my lawyer didn't show up to court. So I pled guilty, and he was like, you had to go to counseling, you had community service, probation, all these things. And we went to the law office, and my mom yelled at the owner of the law office, which is the only time I've ever seen her yell. And they said, well, we're sorry, the lawyer didn't show up. We don't know why, but we will get it appealed. And so I still had to do all the things. So I was in AA at 16, learning that it's hereditary, learning that alcoholism is hereditary, learning that you're hiding something, learning all these things. They had you take an evaluation, and everyone is giving me advice saying, lie on the evaluation. And I'm like, okay, I'm lying. So they asked, how many times have you been drunk? And I was like, well, let's see. What's half of a year of school? Let's say it's like 45 days. So I've been drunk 16 days. The answer is 1. You should only be drunk once, the time you got caught, not 16 times. But that to me was like, oh, that's a lie. So no, that wasn't the right answer. So I had to go to counseling for a while. My school found out we had to go to counseling for that. Unfortunately, my counselors in both of those were actually selling drugs out of the back.
What? Your counselors?
Both of them. Yeah. Because I had one for school and one for the court system. Yep.
Wow, that's terrible.
Yeah. So they weren't really like concerned helping me, anything like that. And truthfully, talk about a chip on my shoulder. Yes, I had a huge chip on my shoulder because I didn't really think I had a drink. I'm like, I have a drinking problem. I'm not an alcoholic. I drink too much, but I don't have a drinking problem. And I slowed down, so then I became a senior, or right before my senior year, my dad left. My dad left my mom fell apart. I had to tell her, he told me I had to tell her. And then she fell apart and I had to become the mother.
Jeez.
And so then her mother fell apart and went into the psychiatric ward of the hospital because she had dementia, had Alzheimer's. And then she was released to my uncle out in California. So just so much change happened. And again, I changed my friend group. Most of my friends, it was a small town. We all drank. I got caught. So all my friends' parents said she's a bad influence. So I was like, you were with me literally hours before I got caught.
So you became the scapegoat for everything.
Yeah. And well, it's the story of my life. So I'm like, well, all right, whatever. So because my dad left, he said, you have to get a job and I'll pay you child support. So I went and got a job and started hanging out with my friends that I met at the job and just different people to drink with. And somehow, I'm not even sure how, but somehow I pulled out a 4.0 my senior year in high school. And my goal, yeah, my goal was, my goal was to get a PhD in computer science and move to Japan.
Wow.
And that didn't happen.
If it did, you would have had a blast because I've lived in Japan and it is a blast. It's fun.
I will get there at some point.
There's another Shay in another dimension in Japan right now.
Yeah. But what's so crazy is that I didn't quit drinking. I just slowed down a lot. And then it wasn't until I moved to Kansas City, I'm working and I meet this guy and we became really great drinking buddies together. And about a year after we're together, year and a half, I guess, he says, you do really stupid things when you drink. And I said, that's it, I'm done. What I know now is that he was projecting because he was the one who was really doing stupid things when he drank. He was meeting all these girls and talking with them, our whole relationship. And I didn't know any of it. But he had said that. And I remember distinctly going to the refrigerator, opening it up and telling the beer in the refrigerator, I can never have another one of you again. I'm done.
So what about that simple sentence that he told you, cut so deeply that you said, screw this, I'm done?
I think it was because of both my parents and my brothers. I was kind of the peacemaker. So at a young age, I got the lesson to be responsible. And if we're both doing stupid things when we drink, because I knew as soon as he said that, I'm like, well, he really does stupid things. So if he's saying I do stupid things, then I must be the one that has to sober up. And so I have to be the sober one. I have to make the rational decisions. I have to be able to drive us home. And so that was 22 years ago.
So it was like conditioned in you to recognize when you had to step up.
Yeah. Now you say that. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the moment where it was like, hey, you're the one that has to step up or you're both going down.
Right. Right.
Well, I mean, I'm impressed that that's what did it to you. Because for most people, that wouldn't be enough. I'm just being honest.
Right.
They'd be like, well, guess we're both drunk. Oh, well.
Guess we're both in jail. Oh, well. Yeah.
Both going to jail then. Sweet. Let's do it. That most people would have said that, not recognize that they need to step up and try to be the one person to watch out for both parties. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It just something shook inside of me and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. Wow. And I have had zero, when I tell you this is also crazy, zero desire to ever drink again.
Where do you think that comes from?
I think it comes from one, my spiritual side, but I think it also comes from the years of probably killing my body and my brain cells and my taste buds of, because I remember, and I will still say this, they tell you in AA that you drink because you're trying to numb. And I'm like, I drank because I love the taste. And they're like, no one loves the taste. I'm like, no, I do. I do. Yeah, I do. Because I could see myself literally the progression of tasting the beer, tasting the wine, tasting all the other drinks, I remember I came up with my own drink because I was like, oh, it tastes like Dr. Pepper. I'm going to drink that. So it was like those types of things. It was the taste. And I was like, I can't do it. I'm done.
Wow. Yeah. Everyone has a different story as to why they stopped. And I think they're all very interesting. If you remember when we spoke, I was searching for like a rock bottom to happen to help snap me out of it. And the rock bottom never came. And in reality, it was just, I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't have purpose. I didn't appreciate or love myself. I didn't see value in myself. And then as soon as I started seeing value in myself, believing in me, I started getting this fulfillment that then I didn't need to drink. So I was looking at it wrong the whole time. I'm sitting there waiting for like the worst thing to ever happen, when in reality, I needed the best thing to ever happen. And then that fulfillment, that purpose was enough,
Yep. And that's, for me, that's kind of what my whole journey has been about the purpose. So I went through all of these things for a purpose, was to help others. That's it. Yeah. Overcome any of those things. Yeah. Not just all of them, but any of those. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're almost out of time here because my battery's almost dead. And the reason I can't charge it is because I have 2 USB ports. One's my mic and headphones, and the other is my cell phone that I use as a webcam to get the HD video that, everyone asked me about. Like, how does it look? How does it look so good? I'm like, well, it's because I plug my phone in. It's genius.
So but smart. You are a genius. You're a genius.
The downside is I have no way to charge my computer, but it's also a good way to make me not talk for 3 hours straight.
As we could, because we're kindred spirits, obviously. Yeah.
And we're gonna have another 3-hour talk at Panera Bread in February.
Right. Right.
So gotta get the Delta out. Public health joke. Okay. So I copy the Shadows podcast. I copy them, and I think they copied the Llama Lounge. So we're just copying each other here, which is cool.
Love it. Give me some rapid fires.
I'm doing the questions, right? I'm doing the questions. Okay. So my first to you is, what is your biggest success story when you started really helping people? You started feeling comfortable in your own skin. You started coaching, mentoring, sharing your story, your journey, and it paid off big time with changing someone's life. And it's one of your best success stories.
I'm thinking, what's coming up for me is, even though I don't know the outcome, it's just what's showing up for me. I was asked to, this is kind of how the journey started. I was asked to speak. I was asked to cut hair at a battered women's shelter, and by my accountant. And I said, well, that's funny you should ask. I said, did you know that I was in an abusive relationship? And she's like, no, you have to share your story. And so I actually wrote it all out, and I went to a voice coach, an acting coach, and went over it with him. And he gave me pointers and helped me on it and everything. And then I went and delivered it. And it was amazing. It was just, the moment was so amazing for me personally, because one, I was in the zone of speaking, but two, then when it was over, they came up to me like individually. One, I was cutting their hair, but otherwise they would come up to me and talk to me. And they're like, everything you said resonated with me. I get it. I understand. And it was the story of, you have to heal. You cannot go back to a person like that or to the abuser. You have to heal and heal yourself first. And so that's my biggest success, I will say.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And it's always so comforting to know that someone else gets what you're going through. You know what I mean? Like that's like, because when you're going through that, you feel like you're the only one in the world.
Yeah.
You don't even want to tell anyone. It's like embarrassing, Yeah. And then to hear someone else just say it exactly how you're feeling, it's like, whoa, that's sometimes the motivation needed to help get to move on, to take that first step. You know, it
Yeah.
gives you that hope that someone else did it, you know?
Yeah. And I had mentioned the books that I had read, and they were like writing it down, like, what books was that? And so it was just,
Like you were
yeah.
effective. You knew you were making positive change. You were seeing it unfold right in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I don't know where they're at now, but for me in that moment, to me, that was probably one of my biggest success. There's probably been more, but that's what popped up in my.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Second question. Who is the most famous person's hair you've ever cut?
I have a client who was the governor of Kansas.
Oh, nice. You were cutting the governor of Kansas's hair. What tip did he give you?
I'm not going to share that.
Oh, dang. I asked a question that Sha Sparks won't share. I win.
Which is true, because I am pretty transparent, but that's I'm not sharing that information. Yeah.
Well, other podcasters out there, I win.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You threw me on that one. That's not what I was expecting. So you threw me on that one. Okay. So I guess my last question would be the story behind hashtag fire starters. Where did that come from, and how did you pick these amazing people?
So my business was called Sparks of Hope. And I went to a podcast conference in March of 2020, right before the world fell apart. And the weird thing was that we actually came out of that and there was no toilet paper in the world. So it was kind of like, what has happened? We've been in this conference for 3 days and now there's no toilet. Like, what are y'all doing out here? And so one of the guys I met, he's just such a inspirational soul. He's one of the co-authors in the book, but he had connected with me at this podcast conference, and we would literally like, hey, let's meet. Okay, great. Hey, good to see you. And moving on, like literally like maybe five minutes. And then we would part. And so we knew that we really needed to talk longer than what we had time for. So we talked afterwards on Zoom, of course, after everything was shut down. And we just were chatting about everything and anything. And he's a life coach as well. And he said, Shay, I think, I said, the thing is that we have an opportunity now as coaches is to really, we've had the moment of holy, what is going on here? And now we have time to like really be the change that we want to see. And he's like, I totally agree with you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, it's like we're fire starters. And I was like, what? Fire starters? I don't know where that came from, but yes. And so,
Nailed it.
yeah. And that just kind of stuck with me. And this was literally just a conversation. It wasn't anything about the book. And then I was off for 2 months from the salon because I was deemed as non-essential. And so,
yeah, I hated that they did that to anyone who cut hair, because I love getting my hair cut.
right.
And so when I found out that they were going through that, I was furious. Like people's livelihoods was at stake. Like they weren't getting the hours they needed. The companies were screwing them by ensuring that they didn't qualify for benefits. It was just a mess.
Agreed. And some people, we didn't get unemployment, and some people didn't apply for the PPP loan because they didn't understand the process. So yeah, it was a lot. But so we were done for 8 weeks, and week 6, I was like, man, I'm kind of liking this. I'm kind of liking being off. And I thought I'd already been taking 1 week off a month prior to this and traveling back and forth to DC. And I thought, well, maybe it's time when we open back up, because, in everybody's head, we're just literally going back to normal when this was all new, right? So I thought, well, I'll just start taking 2 weeks off a month. And the next day, I had already written a book. And the next day, my book coach and I were talking, and he was like, hey, Shay, have you considered facilitating your own co-author book? Because these so many amazing people that you send me, but they're not where you were at. They don't have a manuscript written. They might just have, a chapter or something. And I was like, okay, it'll be called Fire Starters, How to Be a Spark of Hope in the Midst of Change. Okay, got it. Yep. And he's like, what? And I was like, I don't know where that came from, but there it is. And within 5 minutes, I had the cover of the book made, and I was like, yep, this is what we're doing. And so my roommate in DC, I asked her to partner with me. And she then redid the book cover of the book. And so, because she's a graphic designer, so she knew exactly what to do. And I just started putting it out there on social media. And the guy who came up with the name Fire Starters was one of the first ones. And then our mutual friend, Chief Master Sergeant Joe Bogdan, was also like, Shay, anything that you do, I want in. Done. Yes, here we go. And I'm like, oh, okay, yes. And and then the rest of them just kind of fell into place. And it's been an amazing journey. And we're literally we're now taking interviews for the next one, which is going to be called How to Be Fearless in Pursuit of What Sets Your Soul on Fire.
Oh, I love that. And if you want your boy in it, let me know.
Well, you got to make an appointment, but yes.
I have to make a what?
You got to make an appointment for an interview, but yes.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay. Let's go. Yeah.
And then that's just it. Like, this isn't really about like a money making, income making thing. This was really about bringing people together to connect and build a community and build a movement. So we literally support each other going forward. And that's what we're doing. And then we just did it inside a book. So
that's awesome. And it's my favorite part about podcasting, period. Because I started with I know airmen, I know they have good stories. I'm going to reach out to them, and I want them to feel valued, and I want people to learn from their journeys, because not many people know about these people. It started with just that, but it opened up so many people in my life that I honestly didn't expect to happen. I didn't expect to be sitting, in a Panera with Sha Sparks doing a podcast. And then Chief Bogdan and like all these like incredible people. I just never knew I would meet y'all and run in the same circles as y'all. So I'm just so honored and blessed. And you guys are one of the most unexpected favorite parts of me attempting this, period. Like 100%. Y'all are just the cherry on top that makes me want to keep doing this. Honestly, just hearing your ideas and what inspires you. And it's just been wonderful. It really has been.
Well, thank you. And I feel the same. I don't think we would have met had you not started the podcast, because you lived here literally less than an hour away and we hadn't even connected. So I love that we finally got to meet too. So thank you for being you and starting the podcast.
Oh, heck yeah. Let's go. All right, Shay. So we're running out of time here. Battery is almost up, but I will, I do want to tell you, thank you from the bottom of my heart for just being you, for getting through everything that you've been through, coming out on the other side stronger, and then empowering other people, bringing them with you on your journey to help them. So reaching back and just touching the lives of so many people, I think is just such a beautiful thing. And you're a huge inspiration. I mean, you're just getting after it. You're making books, you're changing lives. It's inspiring. It really is. And not many people have gone through what you have and come out the way you did. I think that's what makes you so special and unique. So I appreciate you. I love you for being my friend and for being on Hero Front. And with that being said, is there anything that you want to say to the Hero Front audience, which is my family?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, hello, family. Nice to finally meet you. Yeah, absolutely. If anyone wants to reach out or, know more about my things, you can go to my website at shasparks.com or reach out to me on all my social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, anything. And, I always entertain conversations if they're interested in knowing more about being in the Fire Starters book. Look at firestartersbookproject.com, but also I have a link, portion of it on my website at shasparks.com. And truthfully, Josh, you're just an incredible human being who is highlighting so many awesome heroes. I'm just honored that I get to be one of them.
Heck yeah. I love that. Let's go. Fire starters. All right, everybody. So I'm going to have Shay on again, in the future at some point. I wanted this episode to be her origin story. And then in the next episode, we're going to talk about present day Shay, how she is changing lives, the book projects, all of that awesome stuff. So this is her origin story, which I loved. This was the hero's journey of Sha Sparks. and we're out. What's up, Hero Front fam? Josh here, and I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to that episode in its entirety. I owe you a hug, and the next time I see you, let me know how many hugs I owe you, and we'll get after it. Before you turn me off, though, I want you to subscribe on YouTube to the Hero Front Podcast and give me a 5-star rating on Facebook or Apple Podcasts. It would be much, much appreciated to get your love and support. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us on this Hero Front journey, and I will see you on the next episode. Let's get after it.